Yes, I'm a king, go I think I'm a king, go
We happen to be the ruling party. We are the part of the east of Zimbabwe. And naturally, you know, we brought democracy and people want to be rulers also. That's as it should be. The aspirations to be rulers by the various parties which are being represented here. And the way to become a ruler is to win elections. So you must go and, you know, we're getting into the elections now. You fielded your candidates, you hope your presidents win, or where you are the president yourself, you win, hope your candidates win, you have a majority in parliament, and all these things which you are pilloring ZANU about, you can then be able to address them when you are in power. We can't change the laws of Zimbabwe to suit you so that you get into power. We had a constitution in 2013 in which all the parties participated, including, of course, the MDC, which is now running away to become the CCC. They were part of that constitution, and it is the one which is operating in Zimbabwe. I don't want to know why they are now trying to find fault with a constitution which they were participating in, simply because they cannot make that constitution give them power. So rather than complaining to an audience who have come here about your gripes, left, right, and center, you know, I would rather you quickly fly back to Zimbabwe, you go to the electorate, you convince them of your arguments which you are giving here, and the electorate votes for you, and all the things which you have on your laundry list about what ZANU-PF has done to you badly, you then correct it when you are in power after 23 August. That is, to me, the soundest way I can advise my colleagues here. I'm not a romantic about the realities of state power. I left university to go and fight. I was a lawyer, trying to become a lawyer, and I spent 5 years in that war. Out of every 5, I went to war with only 2 came back alive, and another 100,000 Zimbabweans lost their lives to be where we are. We will not be taught democracy and the virtues of democracy by anybody when I actually spent all my life fighting for that democracy, to make it even possible for the people who are here to be listening to Alex Vines and Chatham House. They would not have done it in colonial times. You know, there seems to be nostalgia here about the beauties of colonialism, which I'm sensing from some of the questions, but also everybody tries to say the history of Zimbabwe starts in 1980. It doesn't start in 1980. It starts before 1980. And if there are heavy hearts about grievances which need to be sorted out in the history of Zimbabwe, it is my generation before 1980. And they were not sorted out. The white population and its racist policy for that particular time, they were let scot-free by the same countries in the West which are now championing these groups which are here, and some of them which are here saying democracy, democracy this, democracy that.
And I just have to comment on some of the rhetoric that Mr. Mutsvangwa used. He calls us Western-sponsored. He uses all this tired rhetoric that he uses to slur against the CCC. The truth of the matter is, no Zimbabwean needs any foreigner to tell them the meaning of dignity, that their life matters, that they should not be persecuted for fighting against poverty, injustice, and corruption. The truth of the matter is that the CCC is citizen-driven, citizen-funded, and we're going to continue to peacefully and constitutionally move to ensure that we've got a citizens' government that works for everyone.
They were all supported by the Western countries at that particular time. There is historical injustice which has never been addressed about what we went through with my generation, which it is. So there's selective amnesia, mental amnesia about Zimbabwe. Everybody wants to start after 1980. We want to, if you want, we open the whole book, we go backwards. The focus is on prosperity for the Zimbabwe people, especially with the advent of the new Second Republic. I've seen 2 dictators, the back of 2 dictators. The first one was Ian Smith, he's a young man, and the second one was Mugabe. So I can't be told about how to remove people who are baddies from power by anybody who has never achieved that. The parties which are complaining too much, they spent 20 years trying to remove Mugabe and they couldn't remove him. We, the war veterans, decided that we wanted him out in 2, and in 20 months we had him out. So we know the practical realities of dealing with state power. The state of Zimbabwe, it was not given to us. It is not inherited like some of the African states We fought for it. Its place there is by right of fighting. And for you just to come from somewhere and say, I now want the state of Zimbabwe to be reformed to suit my circumstances, I say, go the same way we did. You go and fight the Zimbabwe state, go outside the country or go for wherever you want and you fight it, then you form your own state.
The perpetrator of violence is known, and it's actually sad for us, particularly as a generation that, in my party, that is a product of fathers that went to the war. When the same fathers are now, when we complain to them to say, you are becoming to us what Smith was to you, and they are telling us to be violent and take up the gun and do what they did. I think this is sad. It's embarrassing to say the least, but we will do whatever it takes to get our freedom the same way our fathers did. That is an assurance. Comrade Chris, you did whatever you did to have the Zimbabwe that we have, and we will do the same. We are committed to non-violence, and we are inviting all the other parties to come to the party.
You see, there are all sorts of NGOs and research institutions which are asking questions. I don't know who funds those research institutions. So the questions have got a bias which has nothing to do with how to bring prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe, but more to do with what you, in your mind, should be the ideal state of Zimbabwe. We want to bring prosperity. We are working on policies to bring prosperity. We formed our state through blood and iron, the Zimbabwean state. We were not given our state by the British, so it is a product of the sacrifice of the people of Zimbabwe. So please respect our state as it is. The security which makes Zimbabwe one of the most peaceable African countries comes from that security, from that state. And our population is organized because it's a product of war, because they fight and overcome a superior organization from the Western countries, which was the Rhodesian Army. So it is a record of achievement. We will not besmirch our record of achievement to appease anybody who thinks the Zimbabwean state should be this or that. That is a closed file, and you can pay to the moon about the Zimbabwe state.
I'm really surprised sitting at this table hearing some of the remarks that came from Mr. Mutsvangwa, because I thought going into elections this is a contestation of ideas, but I see that many still have a very stern war mentality. We are past the war. That happened in 1980. I was a young girl. I witnessed it personally. A child who had parents that were multiracial. I understood the premise of why we went to war, and people gave their lives for that. They gave their lives for Zimbabwean citizens to be able to go to elections and choose their leaders. And so I remind every single member of the current government that they have a mandate to the people. They are answerable to the people. And the actions that we are taking today ultimately have implications. The citizens are watching.
We are happy with it, and it is giving the security which the country needs. So security sector reform, forget about it. We will only we constantly reform according to our historical circumstances. According to Zimbabwe, not some dictates which come from people who never had anything to do with the formation of that particular state. So dream about other things. Stop about security sector reform. I alluded earlier on to the fact that I received the American embassy and they came to ZANU-PF, of all places, after 22 years, to come and say, in this election, we are neutral, we are neither for the CCC or for ZANU-PF or for anybody. This was a superpower owning up to what was in the past was a role of partiality in Zimbabwean politics. People are trying to refuse not to be associated with that superpower now, but they came and owned up themselves to ZANU-PF, and we are very happy with the American position because it helps eases the political situation in Zimbabwe when the big powers, particularly those with a record of question about engagement in Africa in the past, are seen to be interfering in the African politics. This is a good thing for us, and we want to encourage it, that our relations, as we re-engage and engage, we get an easier and more accommodative international atmosphere to make it possible for Zimbabweans to get on without some people feeling that they are favored babies of Washington or London. By the same token, this is 22 years, the most sanctioned country in the world after Cuba, consistently, is Zimbabwe. By who? By the American Congress. Who goes to the American Congress to go and champion those sanctions and is seen with legislators of a foreign country saying sanctions are good for my country? It is a party called CCMDC. Then they now come here and say, we are homegrown. Why are you homegrown if you are going to be hobnobbing in a foreign legislature about imposing sanctions on your country? Then afterwards, the economy slumps because we've been cut out of the international financial institutions. And you now want to say we want to be part of international financial institutions. What does Zidera say? You must return land to the whites so that we can remove Zidera. This is a condition in Zidera. And you know, and this party, CCC, they don't want to mention those things. People should not be engaged in dissimulation. What we have done as Zimbabwe, as ZANU-PF, is to take advantage of a more flat international capital and economic environment to diversify friends and to take advantage of the fact that most of humanity has revolved between Europe, Africa, and Asia. And Asia is prospering. And I was ambassador to China, new Luquist policy. We have started investing in Zimbabwe on a scale never known by an African country today. And those who felt that they right to Zimbabwean resources and they use all sorts of think tanks to try to make Africa become indigent, we are getting rid of that by simply making sure that our economy performs. We are performing very well. And I have been central to most of those investments by the most competent companies in the world to applying their resources on Zimbabwe, to make made in Zimbabwe goods for the global market as good as any from any other country. That's our focus. These other issues, human rights, making the Western countries happy, this and all that, you can live with that. That doesn't bring bread to Zimbabwe.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king. I'm a king.